Good morning, dear students. Today let's start with a new lesson, chapter 15, light. When we talk about light, so in your living room, so there are so many things are arranged in different places, uh, like a table, chair, clock, books. These all are arranged in your living room. So how can you see these things? How can you see these things? Of course, we know that the light help us to see these all things. The light help us to see these all things. So, what do you mean by light? What do you mean by light? What is a light? So, light is a source of energy which enable us to see the things around us. Light is a source of energy which enable us to see the things around us. And when we talk about light, if there is a no light in the room, will you able to see anything? So we cannot see the things around without a light. So the light help us to see the things around us. So that's why we can see the lot of creatures and we can do the work so because of this light. And when we talk about light, so there are two objects. We can classify the object around you in two ways: luminous object and illuminated object. So luminous object, you know that the sun is the source of energy which can produce their own light. So sun is a what? Luminous object. It can produce their own light. Like a bulb, it can produce their own light. So the object which can produce their own light is called luminous object, and due to the sunlight you can see that the things are illuminating. So what are the things around you? Sometimes it is illuminated by the sunlight. So such that object is called illuminated object. So illuminated object are the objects are do not produce their own light. So luminous object produce their own light, but illuminated object do not produce their own light. And you know that sometimes we can see early morning the light comes through a tiny holes through a straight line. So we know that light is, we have already learned in previous class, light is travel through a straight line path. It never deviate. It is only travel through a straight line path. Such a property of light is called rectilinear propagation of light. We have discussed in previous year about rectilinear propagation of light. So today I am going to just mention about such that things before beginning the chapter. So light is travel along straight path. It's called rectilinear propagation of light. Even the speed of light 3 into 10 to the power of 8 meter per second. This is the actual speed of light, 3 into 10 to the power of 8 meter per second. When we talk about light, so there are a lot of applications where we make use of light. So as we the things which is discussed so far, only the light help us to see the things. Beside this, so light is also help us to see our image in the mirror. Now before we go ahead with the property of light, let us discuss the two terms, a ray of light and beam of light. So a ray of light. So what do you mean by ray of light? We have already learned that light is travel along straight line path. So there is a straight line with arrowhead. So that is denote a ray of light. And beam of light. Beam of light, a bunch of ray of light. A bunch of ray of light together. It is a collective term. So the together called beam of light. So here a single straight line with arrowhead which denote a ray of light, and a bunch of ray of light together called beam of light. So these are the two terms related to light. Let's discuss about first property of light, reflection of light. So reflection of light. So the basic things, this is the basic things from which where you see the magic of light. Once you learn about reflection of light, you will be understand how the image is formed in the mirror. So what is a reflection of light? So bouncing back of ray of light when it strike a boundary between different media through which it cannot pass. So what is the reflection? It is a bouncing back of a ray of light. You can see that a ray of light bouncing back a ray of light when it is strike a boundary between different media. So this is the surface here. Actually this is the surface. Actually the ray strike in the surface and bouncing back. So this phenomena is called a reflection of light. So bouncing back of ray of light when it is strike a boundary between different media through which it cannot pass. The media should be here. You can see that this is the first media, this is the second media. Actually light comes from this air and it is strike on the surface. Actually this media is what? Glass. So when the light strike in the surface and reflected back or bouncing back, this is called a reflection of light. Actually the ray incident or strike in this surface, that is called incident ray. When it is bouncing back or reflected back, so that ray is called reflected ray. So the incident ray is the ray incident on the surface, and when it is bouncing back, that ray is called a reflected ray. So these are the two rays, incident ray and a reflected ray. So when an object is placed in your dressing table, so you are able to see that object in the mirror. So it is because of a reflection of light. So when you place in an object, here mirror is there, so the light comes from this object and strike on this mirror and reflected back. So that's why, and when it is strike back reaches your eyes, you are able to see the image in the mirror. So that's why how the image is formed. So reflection of light is the property of light which help us to see the image on the mirror. So when we talk about reflection of light, there are some terminology we have to understand. First one, incident ray, second one, reflected ray, and angle of incident and angle of reflection, and the normal. Okay, here there is a dotted lines, it is called normal, and the normal is always perpendicular to the surface. This is the surface and the normal. So the normal is always perpendicular to the surface. And what is incident ray? The ray which is incident or strike on the surface. And what is a reflected ray? So when it is bounced back, that ray is called reflected ray. So what do you mean by angle of incident? Angle of incident. So angle of incidence means the angle between the normal and the incident ray. So the angle between the normal and the incident ray is called angle of incidence. So we can say that angle I. So this should be I. And the angle between normal and a reflected ray is called angle of reflection. Angle of reflection. The angle of incident, the angle of reflection. So these are the terminology related to reflection of light. So incident ray and reflected ray, the angle of incident and angle of reflection. So these are the terminology related to reflection of light. Okay, next topic we are going to discuss about law of reflection of light. So we have learned already what is the reflection. Here we are going to learn law of reflection. The first law says that incident ray, reflected ray and normal lies on the same plane. Here the glass is a plane. It is a plane surface. Sometimes it is a book. Sometimes it is a steel. So whatever it may be. So it is a plane surface. It is not a three-dimensional. It is a plane surface. So the incident ray, reflected ray, and the normal lies in the same plane. So you can see that this incident ray, the normal, and the reflected ray lies in the same plane. This plane. Okay. Then next law says that angle of incidence, that is I. Angle of incidence is equal to angle of reflection. That is, the angle between normal and incident ray is equal to the angle between normal and reflection. So the angle between normal and incident ray is equal to the angle between normal and reflected ray. The both angle are equal, same. So these are the law of reflection of light. First law says that the incident ray, reflected ray, and the normal lies on the same plane, and second ray says that angle of incident is equal to angle of reflection. So these are the topic which we are discussed today, and we are going to wind up today's session. Thank you so much.